Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Enthusiastic Life Podcast. I'm Brendan Walsh and so excited and honored that you are here to join us. This week, my guest is my friend, Peter VanDyke. Peter is the owner or co-owner of VVK PR and Creative here in Detroit, Michigan. He's also on the board of the Detroit Public Theater, and we have a great conversation around his experience getting into marketing, what inspired him, and how he had always had a vision of owning a firm and how that led him to where he is today and things that he learned along the road, and how he got involved with Detroit Public Theater and the work that they're doing, cultivating professional theater and keeping talent in the city of Detroit. So without further ado, please enjoy our conversation with my friend, Peter. Oh, before you forget, there's a fun thing that has yet to happen ever in one of our episodes that happens at this podcast. So a little teaser for you to stick around, but this one's particularly fun. I hope you enjoy. Peter VanDyke, welcome to the Enthusiastic Life Podcast.
Thank you.
Do you mind introducing yourself for our myriad many listeners?
Sure. Well, you just said my name.
I did.
I don't need to repeat it.
You could, if you were wanting
I'm
to.
Peter VanDyke. So I don't know, I'm the CEO of VVK PR and Creative. We're a Detroit-based PR firm. We have 30 people, majority locally, but also nationally. And that's what I do.
Excellent. And with folks that I know, I always like to share our origin story. How, if you recall, did we come to become friends?
Well, we met at the DAC. We're both morning fitness people. But I brought a prop. I didn't know that was the first question.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
You like an actual prop?
I bought a prop that describes how we became, I think, friends.
You are...
And so I'm going to put the prop on the table because we decided to have lunch. And I thought, I don't know, we're adults and we're at the DAC and it was summertime. And so let's have a glass of wine with lunch. Like a normal person, I had, I think, a rosé.
Yeah.
And like a psychopath, you ordered red wine.
I did.
And so I thought, what better prop for our podcast than a glass of or a bottle of red wine? But I forgot the opener, so it's just a prop.
Is this like free promo? Do we get like a plug with?
Yeah, and it might
wine?
be. I don't know. I could just bought this at like Whole Foods for cheap, so I'm just gonna go like that. So nobody judges me
no,
for
please,
the label.
by all means. You know, I think we should have all of the judging. This is amazing.
Yeah, I think we became friends over lunch. You know, we were breaking bread about business, and then we learned we had a lot in common. And here we are. Now I'm a client, and we're buddies, and we enjoy red wine in the middle of the day.
Who doesn't?
Most people.
You are the first person to bring a gift and a prop.
I'm taking that back. It's just a prop. It's not a gift.
That's even better. You are the Carrot Top of podcast guests.
I don't know what that means.
Carrot Top, the comedian?
Well, I know that, but I don't know.
Because he always had props. That was part of the
I don't
shtick. Was he had props?
No, that's not my kind of humor. No.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you for.
You're welcome.
It's going to do great on YouTube. For those who are listening, Peter brought out a bottle of Chateau Cazot. So Bordeaux.
Maybe you'll get like a sponsor out of it.
That'd be nice. And 2 glasses. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You know, for sound effects for those listening.
You
So Peter, I don't know where to go from that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. This is good. So tell me about VVK Creative. Tell me about how it came to be and how did you get into marketing and PR?
Okay, I guess I'll start with how I got into it because that's the beginning of the story. So it's something I've always wanted to do. Generally, at first when I was in high school and college, I thought I wanted to be in marketing, specifically in advertising, or in a more of a creative role, graphic design. I was really interested in. I realized that I can't design and I can't do math, but the intersection of those two things was public relations in many ways, and I can write pretty well. And so I started down that path. I think what's also a little bit different about me as opposed to other people that have gotten into PR is that it was always like from day one of PR class, my desire to own my own agency. I'm still close to my professor at Wade State, the PR professor there, Shelley Nager. And
shout out Shelley Nager.
And she talks about, and I don't have it anymore, unfortunately, but like my first term paper, I talked about wanting to own an agency in Detroit that did good work for the community. And so from sophomore year of college till today, that's always been my path. And mostly every decision I made professionally was to help me down that path. So fast forward 20 some years, and I now own VVK PR and Creative. I say we're a new company with a long history. So we're a little over 3 years old, but the company was formed by my portfolios in PR historically. I've owned another agency prior to this one, and then worked in an agency for many years prior to that, and built a pretty large portfolio of clients. And so I combined my portfolio of business with my business partners who owned a video production company, who were looking to kind of bring that to a different level of service. And so we combine these portfolios of business. So while we're only 3.5 years old, some of our clients have been with us for 10, 13, 14 years. So we're a new company with a long history, and have experienced a lot of growth in the past few years.
And what drew you to marketing?
What drew me to marketing? So, I like storytelling. I think I've always just enjoyed generally kind of what makes something unique and what makes a person tick, or what attracts somebody to something, whether it's a product or a place, and thinking about how I can kind of share that with more people. It's just something I've always enjoyed doing. I love kind of the science and the art of messaging, especially in kind of highly complicated situations. I think there's a human element to it, and there's a business element, and combining the human and business element is always really interesting to me. So, unfortunately, I think my role now, I get further and further away from that piece of my work. And unfortunately, I've had to learn how to do math a little bit more in my role as CEO. But in many ways, now I apply that to business partnerships and business acquisitions, and to employee engagement, is how you kind of find the business and the human element of everything you do, and combine those to kind of help people move forward, help places and products move forward.
And so something you mentioned is it's getting to where you are today. There have been different companies, there have been different iterations of your company, and then VVK that you have now, you've grown and you've expanded. What are some of the things that you've learned from the path that you've taken to get to where you are today?
I think the first thing I've learned, and I really learned it from a couple of my mentors, particularly Bob Berg, who was the owner of the first agency I worked for, and eventually the agency that I acquired. He was a co-owner, Bob Berg and Trudell Muirhead. But Bob and I became pretty close. He's a really well-known figure in Detroit's political community. He was Coleman Young's press secretary. He was Bill Milliken's press secretary, and then he started an agency. And he has a couple of quotes. My favorite one is, "When you need a friend, it's too late to make one." And that can apply to pretty much anything in life, and it certainly applies to business growth and business development. Business development can sometimes feel like you're kind of taking advantage of relationships just for the purpose of money. And I think you have to develop the relationship first, and then the business comes second. And so I think that has guided me through how I was able to go from being a basically entry-level associate to about, 7 or 8 years later, acquiring the company in my first, became my first agency that I owned. Growing through that partnership, and then growing through this partnership, is that those business transactions were all built upon relationships. And then those relationships helped guide the business. I think where businesses break down is when the relationships break down first, and usually the business comes second. And so that's certainly a lesson I've learned as well. And I think that's also why clients have stayed with me through 13, 14, 15 years. I mean, the first client I ever worked on at Berg Muirhead and Associates, which is the agency that I had acquired, is literally still with me today. And the CEO, Cindy Paskey, everybody knows her in Detroit and globally. And she's still a mentor and still a friend, and still a client. And that isn't fully because of the business relationship. It's because of the relationship and the trust that we built with each other, and that carried on through 20 years of 3 different companies.
So with the first company where you worked, what's that like working with your mentor, and then succeeding succeeding them, right? And buying, like, what's that like? I mean, that's a really unique thing, right? Especially in a 7-year period. So you're still pretty young,
right?
And now you are buying their business, and succeeding them. Tell me about that experience, 'cause that's really unique.
Yeah, it's difficult. I think I was very fortunate to have. Again, there's a relationship dynamic and there's a business dynamic. The relationship dynamic, I was very fortunate to have built trust with the partners, Georgella and Bob. My intentions were always very well known that I wanted to eventually acquire their company, and if not theirs, I would leave for somebody else's. And so part of it was me being probably a little bit, very just proactive and upfront about my intentions in my work there. But I also know I had to earn it. It wasn't just going to come to me. And earn it not only in learning the business, but earn the trust of the clients as well. So it was trust all around. And I think patience, it's definitely patience. These are never quick processes unless you have $1 billion, and maybe even then it's not quick. And you can just say, I'll pay to have you leave. That was the patience on negotiating every element of the process was really tough. And I think, and it's really respect. I had deep respect for them and their contributions to the agency, certainly, but the community and the people that they've impacted over the years. And I wouldn't be successful if this acquisition had not given them the respect they deserved. Because the clients would not. It's not only because they deserve it, and I wanted to give them that respect, but also the clients wouldn't stay with me if they felt like Bob and Georgella were wronged in that process.
Yeah.
So all those three, it's the trust, it's the patience, and it's the respect, all had to work seamlessly together at every point in the process. That's not to say there weren't a couple of tense conversations, but really, never any yelling. I think there was one conversation that was a little bit tense. It's always when money's put on the table. That's always when things, hit the fan. But we navigated through that as well. And we did a lot of things. They had to still work in the business too. That's an interesting process that not only are you buying the company, but you're also negotiating an employment contract with somebody that wasn't employed by the business. They owned it. And so that's an interesting part of the process that you sometimes don't expect until you have to manage it. But I wanted to make sure that the story was told about how we did this, and that was truly done in partnership. And we did a lot of things to honor their legacy as well. We created a scholarship at Wayne State in their name. And so part of it was so they felt like this wasn't the end of their legacy. This is kind of the beginning of it in many ways.
I love that.
And that scholarship still is there today and giving students money every year for their education.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And what a neat way to create a lasting impact above and beyond the business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I hope to do.
Yeah. So something you mentioned that jumped out to me that, a lot of times we talk about the positive side of business and all the great things that happen, but something that you talked about was relationships breaking down, right? And I think, there's times where that happens within organizations, but I think it also happens with clients, right? And I'm curious, when you touched on that, what do you do in those kind of situations? Like, how do you manage those difficult conversations when they come up?
So, my number one recommendation is to get a facilitator.
Okay.
It's really tough. Business partnerships are like marriages. They're built on trust. They're built on good intentions and a promising future. And for a number of different reasons, a marriage might break down. So does a business partnership. Some things can be extreme reasons. We've all seen them in the news and everything, embezzlement and all these horrible things. And sometimes it's just, as in marriages, different ideas about how you want to grow, and you grow apart instead of together. Yeah. And I can't think of many ways in which a business partnership isn't like a marriage. It's a legal contract. Yeah. And you're managing people and people around you together. But I'll say, just like, in many marriages, you get a counselor. I think in business partnerships, you need a counselor as well. It's really hard to run the business and manage a relationship at the same time, and make sure that relationship is like simpatico at all times, especially when it comes to like compensation negotiations between the two partners, or shareholding between the two partners, or different ways in which your role might shift. Some roles shift throughout the partnership where you are co-presidents, and then suddenly somebody takes a lesser role or a bigger role. So it's really hard to navigate that. And for somebody to take lead in a conversation that's a partnership, and guide each other through that. So I would never recommend doing that, frankly. I mean, I think it's a really magical experience when you can, and I've never seen that happen successfully. What I have seen happen successfully is when partners bring in a business advisor, some kind of consultant that helps guide those conversations.
Yeah.
It creates accountability. It lets somebody else be the guide. And it helps kind of keep things organized in a way. And so that's what I have in my current partnership at VVK. And it's been just hugely beneficial and valuable.
Yeah. Someone who can help you navigate and facilitate that kind of communication, right? And like a marriage or a business, that communication is key. It made me think there was when I very first started listening to podcasts, the first one someone recommended to me is called Startup. Mm-hmm. And it was someone who came from This American Life and documented his ideas of starting a podcast company.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And talked about when he brought on partners. And actually at one point they brought on essentially like a couples therapist for business partners.
Yeah.
And they documented everything.
Right.
And it was really fascinating to hear them talk through challenges that they were facing and discussions they were having, things that they were negotiating. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's a whole process too. I mean, your business advisor has to resonate with both partners, has to have the trust of both partners, because and then you start to see issues happening there too, where like, well, our business advisor is favoring your opinion, not my opinion. All those things that happen. So it's hard to find one. It's funny because we've often, we have a couple of nicknames for our business advisor at VVK, none of which should be mentioned on this podcast. But generally, we say it's like he's like a marriage counselor to us, and also provides really great business structures and recommendations as well. But in many ways, you can find a lot of business advisors that can do that. You have to find the right business advisor that can actually handle the human dynamic.
Sure. Does that make sense? So working in marketing, working in PR for as long as you have, are there any projects that you've worked on that you're particularly proud of? Whether it's the impact that they had on the community or the impact that they had on the business themselves or the organization, anything that has really jumped out to you is like work that you're particularly proud of?
That's a risky question because all my clients are my favorite.
That is fair. Just like everyone's children is their favorite.
Exactly. So it's just like a marriage and with children. Give them equal time.
And you can plead the fifth if it's safer that way.
I might have to. I truly, it can be annoying to my team members who some people are just doing the job to do their job, and everybody at VVK is amazing. I love my team. But some people don't have the level of personal dedication to their career that I have, which is why to career VVK at least, which is why I own my own business. But I one time asked one of my team members, like, so what client do you love? She's like, I don't love any of them. She's like, I do good work for them, and that's where my relationship ends, which I respect. To keep doing good work. I love my clients, so that's why it's hard to pick. And there's been small moments for some clients that meant a lot. And there's been huge moments for some clients that also mean a lot. I think there's a core number of clients that I'm really proud of my portfolio of work over many years. And I could happily name those. And those are, Linda McIntosh and Nate Forbes at the Forbes company that owns Somerset Collection. And if you just look at me, it's such an iconic destination, and we've just done really, really cool things, including when they opened a satellite store downtown Detroit, to just breaking ground on a U of M health facility on the former Kmart site. Cindy Paskey, everything she does turns to gold, and she's amazing, and she's taught me so much as a mentor and as a client. And so I can name a number of things, helping her celebrate her major milestones, anniversaries. That's been great. Anika Goss in Detroit Future City. She's a dream spokesperson, and she has brought to light so many systemic challenges and opportunities that I think that people haven't seen in the way that she's framed them. And her success and her her fame speaks for itself, but I'm lucky to have worked with her. And I'm probably missing a few, certainly, but I think those 3 clients who I've been working with for over 12 or 13 years always stand out as people that I'm really proud to work with, and I feel really honored that they've chosen me to support them in their work.
So something you mentioned that jumped out to me and made me think of, a lot of folks in marketing and PR, they wouldn't think of Detroit as a destination to set up their shingle, right? They might think of New York, they might think of Chicago, they could think of other myriad, big cities that I'll throw out with air quotes. Being from here, what has it meant to you to do the work that you do in the place where you grew up?
Yeah, I mean, for me, there's no other option. I think I'm fortunate to have been able to do the work that I do at a time, and one of the most exciting times in Detroit's history. Doing the work that I do, 40 years ago would have been a very different experience than the last 20 or so years. And so, when I was born and raised in Detroit, right after college, I moved back downtown. So it was 2003. And so I've just had...
Which is not a normal time that people are moving back downtown.
There were a fair amount of residents downtown. It was actually a really fun time to be in Detroit because it just kind of felt like you had the run of the place. In downtown specifically, there's a lot of residents all over Detroit. I'm certainly not anything special, but downtown just didn't have a lot of residential in general. So it was a really fun time. It's like a very small community in a big town. And then the nature of the work that I do and the clients have chosen to work with me, I work with people who have literally changed the face of downtown Detroit. The Roxbury Group, which is also, members of my family, but they have renovated 3 or 4 buildings. Cindy Paskey has led major organizations, not only her own company, but on the boards of other organizations like the Downtown Detroit Partnership. Peter Cummings was a client. He's out of the business now, but he changed the face of Midtown. And so not only have I owned a business in this time frame, but my business has done the PR for some of the biggest change makers in Detroit. Right now, we do work for the Gilbert Family Foundation, that's the honor of being a public relations steward for Dan Gilbert's family's investment in the city is a pretty big responsibility, and we're just a very small part of that responsibility, but still honored to do it. And so it's not just about hanging a shingle in Detroit in the last 20 years. It's really about the privilege to do work with people who have changed the city, and that we've been part of that storytelling effort.
Very cool. So speaking of impact in the city of Detroit, one thing that you're involved with is the Detroit Public Theater. Mm-hmm. Do you mind telling our listeners a little bit about that?
Yes. I'd be happy to. I'm only hesitating because the 3 co-founders and producing artistic directors are such great ambassadors for their own organization that they're might listen to this and say, God, you ruined and screwed up everything.
So we can just cut this out and then we'll invite them on the podcast and they can speak for the organization.
Yes. Detroit Public Theater is a regional theater in Detroit. There's not many of them. And the 3 co-founders and producing artistic directors, it's a mouthful of titles, which is Sarah Claire Corporandi, Sarah Winkler, and Courtney Burkett, started this theater because they thought there was a gap missing in Detroit, a professional theater. When people in Detroit think about theater, they often think about touring shows that come to the Fox or the Fisher. And there's a whole community and industry of theater that was misrepresented or underrepresented, in Detroit. So they started Detroit Public Theater. And that was now about 11 years ago. And it was really started with a vision. Debbie Erb was the founding chair, and she was a really important part of that process. And they started with a vision. They had all worked in New York, and so they had amazing relationships. People like Celia Keenan-Bolger, who was just in town last week. She is a DPS grad and Tony Award-winning actress. She's on the Gilded Age. She was like a founding board member. She's still on the board. So they had those types of relationships in New York that they brought to Detroit, but then also had a mission to stop like the bleed of Detroit talent to cities like New York, Chicago, and LA. Yeah. Amazing artists and performing artists are trained here. Dominique Morisseau, who is on our board and is a artistic director as well, went to Cass Tech, went to U of M, now is in LA, very well known. Celia Keenan-Bolger is another one. We can name them, so on and so forth. And so they wanted to give Detroit trained and born and raised actors a place to be home and do the work that they love and not have to leave, as well as bring world-class theater to Detroit. So they did that. It's been a wild and amazing 10 and 11 years for them. They had big, audacious goals, and they've achieved almost all of them. They commissioned a play in their second season that went straight to Broadway. That's never happened in the history of Detroit, certainly, and it's pretty rare that a play is commissioned somewhere that's not in New York and it goes straight to Broadway right after its world premiere. They've been in the New York Times several times, just catching the attention of the New York Times and what they're doing in Detroit. They just world premiered another play called Soft Target. They turned an old English muffin factory in Midtown, which happens to be behind my house, into a world-class theater and stage that not only do they produce there, but they offer subsidized kind of residencies. So other Detroit artists have a world-class location to produce their work. And, it's only been 10 years. A lot of performing arts companies don't achieve this in their 50, 60 years.
Right.
So it's been amazing. It's been a lot of work, definitely at a crossroads, and just given the way the arts funding is going on right now. So there's a tough hill to climb to go from a 10-year startup to a 100-year sustainable arts organization. So that's the road that we are taking now. I failed to mention I'm on the board, so that's why I started as a friend of the theater, and they kept asking me to do things to help them when they were startup, and they said, "Well, you're doing so much, you might as well be on the board." I said, "Sure," and so now I'm the secretary of the board and really involved.
Nice. Yeah. So as we get to wind down, one question I like to ask all my guests in an uncertain world where there's a lot going on, Peter, what's bringing you joy right now?
Can I have two things?
Yeah, you can have as many as you want. The more joy, the better. What's wrong with more joy?
Okay, there's two things that bring me joy. Number one is my niece, and I don't pick favorites, but it's my niece Margot. It's my brother's daughter, and she always brings me joy. I think I love all of my nieces and nephews, but she's young and she's fun, and she makes me laugh every time I see her. So when I think about, like, without a doubt, whatever situation I'm in, somebody that just makes me laugh, it's my niece Margot. She's the funniest 8-year-old I've ever met. And then secondly, I'm planning a really exciting trip to Thailand.
Ooh, very cool. When's that going to be?
It's going to be in January.
Okay.
And this was a bucket list trip that I planned for my 40th birthday. But then COVID happened and we weren't traveling internationally too much during that time. And then I started a new company, so I barely had any time to take vacation in the last 3 years. And so thankfully I'm in a position now where I can take a trip across the world. So that's bringing me a lot of joy right now.
That's exciting. Yeah. So the planning and getting ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you for bringing the wine.
Don't drink too much in the middle of the day.
I honestly kind of half expected you to break out an opener and actually
not the opener. I'm sorry. Next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to my friend Peter VanDyke for joining us on the podcast. Our only regret when we wrapped up was Peter had forgotten his wine opener. So it ended up only being a prop. He did have every intent of us actually opening that bottle of wine and sharing it on the podcast. So sadly, we weren't able to share it together or with you. Who knows where the episode would have gone if we had a glass of wine in us. So anyway, thank you so much to Peter. Thank you so much for joining us. If you've enjoyed this, please feel free to follow us. You can find us on Instagram, on Facebook, and under the Enthusiastic Life Podcast, as well as on YouTube. Give us a like, give us a share, give us a rating, leave a comment, and pass this on to a couple of your friends who you think might enjoy an enthusiastic and positive conversation. So thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate all of you who listen, even if it's just one of you, and have a great day.